We're done talking about me. Let's talk about the man of the hour, Mr. Black Seraph. We need the music. Where's the music? Here he comes,
Didn't
everybody.
know I had a title theme.
But no, he's on the podcast, and we've had him on before, and we asked him a bunch of questions back then, and we've been asking questions throughout the stream here, so we don't need to barrage you with things. But dude, how has it been working on Garlic 2? This is one you started mid this year, right? Early summer?
Something like that, yes.
And I know I've been frothing saying, hey, where is it? Where is it? Where is it? I want to play with it. I want to talk about it. I want to show it to people. And finally you said, okay, all right, here's the alpha. Don't get too excited because it is limited. But what's coming? What's next?
Well, the very first thing is getting more devices on the roster.
Yeah.
We want to cover more SoCs, essentially build a bunch of templates so that other developers can jump aboard. GarlicOS 2 is not a single-man job. It's an open thing that everyone can jump aboard on.
I like that.
And it's boiled down to be as minimalistic, effort-wise, for the porter as it can be. If you're making your own port for a device that I've never seen, okay, it most likely boils down to a single text file where you give it a little bit of data and you build yourself a bootloader for it, and then you just drop in the already existing image, and theoretically it should boot. Acme Blast actually proved that point, I think 4 hours after release.
It's crazy how fast you can port Garlic to new devices now that you have this base, template set. You were telling me that we should do a live stream with you where we live port to a new device on the spot.
Yes, I'm actually a little concerned that that might be a 5-minute stream, depending on the device we're porting to.
Oh, look at this guy. 5 minutes. I was like, can you do it under 2 hours? And you're like,
It heavily depends on the SoC and how open it is. If I look at something like the embernic devices, for example, they don't come pre-rooted, okay?
Yeah.
And without having a serial port wired up or something else to pull the image off of, you might have trouble getting the base files you need to build your bootloader. And if a device is openly available, for example, there's a unpricker image available on the manufacturer website, then you're probably going to have an easier time because you can literally just pull the files you need off the manufacturer website. So, as I said, it really depends on the device. If it's something where all the files are available, you're going to turn this into a 5-minute job if everything clicks into place.
What about something like the V90? Because that's one that we were excited about earlier on. And
V90 might actually just be a simple boot script because we already prepared the ARM HF image, which is available on the website. So the V90 is definitely something that's going to happen officially. Yeah, I just don't know how I'm going to clock this in just yet. There's so many things that are currently cooking.
What about something like, I don't know. I'm trying to think how low spec can we go? Can we do something like the Data Frog? Is that possible?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
Even though it's completely closed, it's running what? I don't even know what that thing's running anymore.
Some like digital signage thing.
Yeah.
Yes, especially those devices. This is mostly what GarlicOS 2 has been designed for. GarlicOS 2 decouples that whole classical thinking that we need kernel source code access or bootloader source code access or some kind of pre-built SDK where we can get some key information out of. GarlicOS is built around the idea that we have nothing. The manufacturer gave us absolutely nothing to work with, and we can still make something happen.
I mean, it'd be ridiculous. It'd just be too cool. Having that quick resume, having that features like going between your save states and then popping that SD card out and putting it in similar devices like the M17. I don't know.
Which
could
also works.
we get Garlic on the Switch?
Theoretically, yes, we could.
That would be awesome.
That'd be interesting.
The Switch has all the prerequisites. You're probably familiar with SwitchRoot, the group that actually hacks all of the Linux and Android stuff open there.
Mhm.
It would literally be a simple script running on the Linux side. If you were to run switch root on their Linux side and you made yourself a little bootloader script
Yeah.
to swap the rootfs out and execute the main init file, then you would have GarlicOS running on the switch.
So, but we would have to chip it first, right?
Depends on the switch model.
What about something like the analog
That's really
pocket?
cool.
Well, I'm not familiar with the analog pocket, so I can't really tell you.
Yeah, well, completely different idea. FPGA, right?
Yeah.
Although it does do some emulation. I don't know. I know that your dream is that you can really port this to any handheld, and you have a team like Turtle, like you said, working on the Retroid side of things. So he's really knowledgeable in Retroid Pocket 2S. So that's happening. The 2 Plus already has the alpha out. Are you porting to something like the Retroid Pocket 1? Are you doing the older devices, RP2?
I don't have the Retroid Pocket 1 available.
Do you need the
we-
device with you to do it?
Yes, I need to have at least some sort of access.
Okay.
I'm not saying it has to be me. It could be another developer doing it.
Because it is open
GarlicOS
source,
is-
right? Yeah, you
Yes,
have your
GarlicOS
GitHub out
is-
there.
Exactly. I also told Acme Plus, because he did a test bootloader port to the M17, which actually seems to work
Fantastic.
fairly well. I told him if he wants to make it semi-official, we can literally just join it together into the GarlicOS GitHub organization. So that
Wow.
the bootloader's all in one place.
Wow. Dude, I love seeing the devs come together like this to work together on this stuff. You guys are doing ridiculous things. Already having it on the freaking 405V, the 405M. The major feedback we've had so far is that people just want to have more systems supported. They want to be able to play beyond PS1. How far off are we from that?
Well, that's probably one of the bigger points. Hardware acceleration is a little bit tricky because we are now working with so many diverse platforms. A big chunk of the devices we're now supporting are technically Android devices. We're looking at the 405V, 405M, the Retroid Pocket. Those are all made for Android, which means we are actually not having access to proper Linux-sided hardware accelerated drivers. Which means we will probably have to go through Hybris, which is a Bionic to glibc translation layer, so that we can use the Android-sided drivers. This is something we've been talking about for a while, and this is probably the next big step we're taking before we're worrying about Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and on-screen keyboard support.
Okay. Fair.
And the Linux devices definitely have an edge on this because we have, if we're looking at Rockchip, for example, we have the Linux-sided drivers available. So we can actually just slot those in. They might need a little bit of guide patching so that they work with the Android kernel, but other than that, it should click into place.
And so what you're talking about then is, could you take one SD card and then put it between any other Garlic device?
Yes. That's the whole
no
point.
matter what it is. I mean, you could take it from a Data Frog all the way up to an RP3 Plus.
Exactly.
That's ridiculous. That is. I mean, we're seeing this with MINUI now, and Sean Inman is supporting, I think, 4 or 5 devices now, and that's cool. But this is taking that idea and really blowing it up, and this is, you're gonna have other developers coming in to help port. And you have a whole movement now, this revolution where you're taking this beautiful software, this beautiful UI, and I know you took inspiration from Onion OS originally, but you grew it into its own thing, and you're now joining it to all these emulation devices, which traditionally have just the worst software, the dumbest ROMs, numbered ROMs. Terrible experience, just it's like the last thing these companies ever think about. So my mind is overflowing right now with joy thinking about this, man. I'm stoked. That's what I'm trying to say. I'm saying thank you.
To be honest, the biggest issue.
Donate to this guy.
You're welcome.
Kofi.
I started this
in the
because it's so much fun, and I still do it because it's so much fun.
It's a challenge. You challenged yourself last Christmas, and now it's your full-time job, right?
No, I wish it was. It doesn't. This is gonna sound so horrible, but with local prices over here and being the sole supporter, it actually does not throw enough money my way after taxes to actually cover everything. But
Everybody?
that's okay.
No, it's not. I want you to quit your day job and just do garlic, because everybody, you need to go to Black Seraph's Patreon in our description, join it, go buy him a Ko-fi or 5, and let's get this train rolling. This man should not have to focus on silly things like work, on his life's passion. He was the chosen one for the garlic. He must.
I mean, the real cool thing about all of this is because I still have to hold a day job, most of that stuff happened on weekends or after day job hours. So all of this stuff was moved along across a period of somewhere close to 6 months with, I don't want to say, but maybe 3 hours every weekday and then 10 to 12 hours on every weekend day. And it was just moved along bit by bit.
We got to get rid of that pesky day job, man. That's what I'm saying. That's really the bottleneck here. So
I know it is.
We got to turn you into handheld Jesus.
It's just a matter of money. Like, come on, everybody. Let's support this man. Let's get this man going here. I don't know.
I just don't want to appear greedy because it's just a European living situation kind of thing.
Sure.
And I know that it's probably hard to understand for people who don't live in an area like this. It's tough, but it's doable, and I'm extremely thankful for all the people that enable me to do this in the first place. Even to the extent that I am able to do it right now, and I don't even know how to put it into words. I'm so thankful that all of you guys are supporting my work, and I'm so thankful for all my collaborators, for Turtle, and all of the other people that have contributed. I'm just happy that this thing has grown into something that's bigger than myself. If there are any other questions about the GarlicOS, just toss them my way. I'll try to answer the best I can.
I have a question. When N64?
After hardware acceleration is a thing, because we don't have a proper software rasterizer for the N64 emulators. That basically means we need to get the first device going with the Linux blob files, so we can actually get the graphic card initialized. Realistically speaking, I think that will probably be the 35XX Plus, simply because the 35XX is one of my primary devices, and I kind of feel it needs a successor.
Wait, so you think that's going to get done like around the time of release, like actual shipping?
Hardware acceleration will not drop on day one of the release, no. Which is why dual boot is such an important thing, so that people can go back between testing the newest GarlicOS alphas and hopefully soon beta builds, and of course the stock OS, which does have working hardware acceleration this time around. So people can actually just use the stock OS for stuff like PlayStation Portable and for Moonlight streaming and all the stuff, while we are preparing the GarlicOS side with the on-screen keyboard support, with the Wi-Fi, with the Bluetooth, with all the other missing components that we are currently still working on. It's gonna drop in bit by bit.
Right.
And people can watch it live happen on GitHub.
How often are you right now releasing updates to your builds? I know before your cadence was like, it seemed like every 48 hours you were iterating. For like 2 months.
Well, technically, people could compile their own builds.
Okay.
There are already some bug fixes that landed on GitHub that are not in the pre-compiled images. So there are minimal changes beyond 2.0 that are already available, but people would have to compile it themselves. It's mostly bug fixes. I figured that once enough bug fixes rolled up, that we are gonna do cumulative updates and just increment the version number bit by bit as we take care of bugs and introduce new features. I figure the actual public builds will land whenever a new major feature is done. For example, Wi-Fi already works internally, but we don't have the proper UI to control it yet.
Okay.
Which mostly hinges on the fact that we don't have a working on-screen keyboard implementation yet. How would you type in your password or...
Right, if you don't have a way to do it. True.
Yes.
I guess you could edit into a config file or something.
Exactly.
But that's against the ethos, right? That's against the user-friendly experience.
Another thing is, I know that GarlicOS 1.x users were big into theming the thing. Okay.
Yeah.
They were all about customization, and I try to bring all of those features back with the 2.0 rebuild. We actually have full seaming support for the base colors, and all of the icons can be replaced. The only problem is the base color swapping is currently non-functional because of a bug in the config file serialization. Another thing that needs fixing, which will hopefully land with the next rebuild, then people can actually adjust the base colors as well next to the icons, which they already can.
The other question I have is, and I think a lot of people want to know this, is when are we getting Garlic 2.0 on the 35XX itself, bringing it back to the original device and improving, on features? Like, why would you want to use 2.0 instead of 1.0? Is it going to have more system support? Are you going to take Kariki and the GPU acceleration and combine it and then give us, Nintendo DS on the original 35XX?
Yes, that's the idea. The main reason why the 35XX has not gotten a 2.0 rebuild yet is because it is possible, but as you said, it is not on par with the original one in terms of performance. The original one made use of a whole bunch of hardware trickery to get where it is. It's extremely hardware specific, which is great for what it is, because it squeezes out as much performance and as much, how do I put this, goodness with its custom scalers.
It's finalized. It's finalized, right? That's the final version of 1.0 where it's at now, which is what, 1.5.0?
I would actually have to look the version number up right now.
It's whatever the case is. It's finalized and it plays up to PS1, and that's just where it's going to forever sit. You'd have to get it to where it is now and perform as well.
Let's put it this way. It's quite easy to explain. The original GarlicOS version was not hardware accelerated in any way other than hardware scaling. Scaling was done mostly by an IPU that sits connected to the screen. Think of it as a little layer in between the operating system and the screen. You probably know it from computers when you let the graphic card do the scaling. You have a game running at, 1024 by 68, right? And it still stretches to your screen, right?
Right.
Which is way higher resolution. It's the same thing there. GarlicOS 1.x runs it at whatever resolution you'd set it to. It could be bigger than the screen, smaller than the screen, but the IPU built into the screen takes care of scaling it to the rest of the screen, which comes at a 0 CPU.
Oh, okay. There you go. Yeah. So you want
This is why it's so performant for such weak hardware.
Right, without even touching the GPU.
Exactly. It does not touch the GPU.
Crazy.
This is all talking operating system to the screen with the IPU in the middle.
Okay.
And with hardware acceleration in the big picture, we no longer have to rely on tricks like this. We can literally just create a GL context for hardware accelerated 3D operation, and we can just render it to a quad and then scale that quad using the GPU to whatever size we need it.
And so then could this lead to eventually, devices like the, like this one, the 405V, getting up to PS2 and GameCube? I mean, I know I asked this earlier, but does there have to be a Linux emulator for those systems to ever get into Garlic? Or are Android standalones possible?
It needs that. Unless we get some more additional Android emulation layers somewhere down the road. There is stuff like that, like Waydroid and stuff, which works if you have a Wayland compositor.
Okay,
but
fair.
That's way beyond the scope of this.
Right.
What's more realistic is everything that has a Linux build will probably end up in Garlic at one point or another.
So what does that leave us with? That gets us up to PS2. We do have PS2
There are
now,
ARM builds of
Linux.
PCSX2. The thing with PCSX2 is it requires the X11 stack from what I know. That's something that GarlicOS does not offer. We are running without X11, which means we would need something that's pure EGL or GBM. Anything that runs without that. But it doesn't exclude, expanding it somewhere down the road. It could be, for example, a port master thing or some other external add-on, because there is support for external apps. There already is. So people could just supplement it further down the road with, let's say, a secondary rootfs overlay that has X11 in it. And then you could also side load PCSX2, for example, somewhere down the road.
I was going to say, do you have any idea of what the performance difference would be running, let's say, GameCube for PS2 through Garlic versus running it on just Android side, like with Gamma or something like that?
That's a good question. That's all hypothetical at this point because we don't have actual numbers to compare. I can only guess. The thing so is, if we have a device that has official Linux GPU drivers that we can actually just repurpose here, then I figure we're probably going to be more in line with what the manufacturer, the OEM, envisioned than if we have to hack something together using Hybris or something. Because most of the Android devices, 405M, 405V, we don't actually have perfectly matching Linux drivers. But most of these devices that run Unisoc, for example, run on a Mali GPU. And even if the drivers are no perfect match between the stuff that you can download from the Mali developer base for the Linux side and the Android side, I have a gut feeling we can still make that work. The combination of Android kernel drivers plus Linux user space drivers. Because I've done it before in the past. It was never released to the public, but that was way back when I worked on the original, not the GPD XD plus, the original GPD XD that was running on a rock chip.
Good times.
And very good times. And one, I actually got to run rather new Mali drivers simply by patching them up. A few little hacking here and hacking there in Ghidra, and the stuff actually loads up properly and initializes. Which makes me think that the differences between the Linux side and the Android side in the user space are not as big as we're made to believe. So with a little bit of hacking, we might be able to mix and match drivers.
Which would be crazy that you could do that. Next year seems very exciting for what's coming for Garlic and all just the unification of the software for these devices. Frankly, Retro had a question. As an individual who wants to develop an OS, is there a way that he can look at the codes and recompile a build, but with different colors or logos?
Of course. It's all available on the GitHub page.
So there you go. Maybe that's
I have one more question.
Chance.
I'm sorry. Since a lot of these devices that are going to be getting Garlic are Android devices, is there any chance we can see the touchscreen working on any of them?
Yes, of course. But the thing is, currently the UI does not support touchscreen input. That doesn't mean that the touchscreen doesn't work. You can actually interact with it. It's a regular U input device. You can treat it like any other touchscreen input. The problem is we just don't have it mapped out in the UI yet. I'm not entirely sure if I want to invest all that much time into touchscreen input because of the fact that we are going to target so many devices and some of them on the far low end where touchscreens aren't available. There's so many things we still need to fix and there's so little manpower to allocate towards it because dedicated team members, right? It's mostly just me and Turtle at the moment. There are independent developers that are now looking into the code, but they haven't gotten in touch to formally join the team yet.
Got it. Okay. And you've always been a solo artist, a solo dev. So how do you feel about turning this into a team effort? Is that something you're sort of ready for now?
That's a good question. I'm not entirely sure. The thing is, I'm not entirely done being a solo developer, but I'm getting my feet wet building some projects that I'm comfortable opening up to the public, where other people can dabble with it. I can maybe foster some more community feel.
Nice. Yeah, you're not hiding this behind a paywall, right? This is not, this is all...
The only thing about monetization that I thought about, and I'm not even fully decided on that one yet, is the official bootloaders that I'm building. There might be a 1 month, 30-day early access where the pre-compiled bootloaders will be available on Patreon for people that are wishing to support it early. And after that 30-day grace period, it will just become public domain like it's been supposed to.
That's how
you should definitely do that.
Definitely do that. Get supported for what you're doing. I mean, that's how you always did it for your Lineage builds across your various devices. And we pay the $10 and we get early access to this stuff. And that was always exciting. Like, it's a new build day, like, cool, I'm going to go flash my device or use the updater. And
talking about Turtle's part in this project, if people take a look at the GitHub page right now, they will see that initial work has been done on porting GarlicOS to MIPS devices. So we now actually have early access to MIPS code.
Ooh.
It's not fully done yet. We still
V90?
need to... no, V90 is an ARM processor. We already have that stuff sort of ARM HF built, but we just don't have the bootloader done yet. No, this is more like for those a few generations back retro firmware devices.
It's a niche.
But yeah, it's essentially for targeting MIPS devices, which is a whole different branch, not ARM related. The one thing I'm not entirely sure about yet is we are focusing on the whole micro SD card swapping thing, so that you can take your micro SD card to any device you want. Right now, we are kind of limited by the different architectures at the moment. We have MIPS devices coming up. We currently support ARM devices. We support ARM64 devices. The sweet spot right now are the ARM HF builds because the ARM64 devices are backwards compatible to them. So you can cover the most devices with an ARM HF build. When we start introducing MIPS devices, so it might be necessary to do a small update to the bootloaders so that it automatically picks the right rootfs depending on architecture, because right now it simply takes the rootfs that you copied in there and it doesn't do any smart choice pick between them
Okay.
to be
All
truly cross-device compatible across
Yeah.
all arches. We need to have one rootfs for every arch on the micro SD card.
I
And
understood.
bootloader has to pick the right one.
Understood 60% of that. For all you smart people out there watching, listening, if you're coders out there, listen to this man. Go take a shot and mess around with the GitHub. Contact him. Let's. I want to get more developers into this. You know, I'd love to learn myself. Even like you were telling me that we could do a live stream where you show me how the process is to port, and maybe that's what we need to do. Because if I could port it to a device, I promise anybody else could too. So
How about this?
Yeah.
I think that might be something that people are interested in. How about when we do that porting stream, we take the original 35XX as a build target.
there you go. Okay.
It's gonna run horrible. I can
Really?
tell you this because this.
Really?
Yes, it's gonna run horrible because
Yeah.
the base is not optimized for the 35XX yet. But we can make it run. We can make it boot. We can take
That's
a look
enough.
at the process.
What other devices could we do? I mean, could we do something like the Pocket Air? Would that be crazy? It's an Android
Pocket Air
device.
Snapdragon, right?
No.
No, Dimensity 1200.
Oh, it's a D1200.
I don't think we have any backend code for the MediaTek stuff yet.
That's okay.
That's definitely one of the harder devices to start with.
RGB 30,
What's in there? It's a rock chip, right?
Oh yeah, rock chip. RGB 30.
3566.
35, 60.
Yeah, that one could be doable once I'm done with the ARC.
Okay. Right, you're
Because
doing
right
the
now
RG
I'm
ARC.
doing the initial bring up for the ARC, which is also rock chip based. Once we have that code in the repository, then we can do a port to that.
Is that the next device that's getting supported right now?
It's the one I'm actively working on at the moment.
Nice. Okay.
Oh, I'm so excited for that. This is going to be a permanent garlic device.
What's your cadence for adding new devices? You know, how often are you going to be spending porting to new devices versus working on the core code?
That's a good question. Right now, I'm porting to new devices simply because I want to get as many SoCs supported as possible so that other developers can then take over the workload of porting. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah. You're because at some point other developers stepping in is going to take on that workload. So
I essentially want to
delegating.
end up in a situation where we have one sample device for every type of SoC stored on the GitHub repositories where
Yeah.
people can use them and fork them to make their own templates and then adjust them to fit their device. So what people should essentially end up doing is they will become porters. They will say, hey, I've got a device I want this to run on. This is the most similar device that's already supported. I'm going to fork this repository. I'm going to adjust the code. Now it runs on my device.
Yeah,
And
you
if they're
could be
willing to support it,
Yeah.
we can make their repository official by joining it into the actual organization.
Yeah, you could become a forker.
That would be awesome to just be able to go to one place and say, I have RGB 30 or 35XX and just find the one you need there, download it, and that's it, right?
Exactly, yes. It's always a combination of three things. You've got the init boot script, which is shared across all devices. You've got the rootfs, which is the core operating system. And then you combine it with a device-specific bootloader. This is the only thing that people will have to build. The device-specific bootloader. Everything else is taken care of for them.
Wow.
As far as the installation, I know on Android you have to put an APK onto your device and install that APK so it'll actually launch the SD card. What about on a Linux device that doesn't have that Android side? Would it just happen from the SD card itself?
Yes.
Okay.
That's actually the case for the 35XX Plus that's upcoming.
Okay. And every Android handheld, at least or is it just going to be a permanent thing where you're going to have that APK out first and then you're going to be able to use Garlic?
Well, the problem with Android devices is most of them are locked down in a way that they will not boot from microSD cards. GarlicOS lives on a microSD card. So
Know
we
that.
need to convince the device in some kind of way to boot from the microSD card. And taking the Unisoc devices as an example, okay? Their bootloaders are locked down tight. So it's not like I can just swap out the first stage bootloader, the stuff that gets executed the instant you press the power button, right? Because that stuff is signed with a key I can't swap.
You're not going to be forking it on day one. You're going to be forking it after a little bit of effort.
Well, the bootloader can be forked early because the actual 90% of the work is going to happen in the rootfs, which people can just upgrade incrementally. But going back to that example with Android, to answer the question, depending on how locked down a device is, we need to find the weakest link in the chain in the boot process, where we can add a little bit of code to reroute the boot flow onto a microSD card. For the RG405 devices, as an example, we are doing this by hijacking the Android recovery, okay? Because that thing has a dedicated boot combination that you can press during cold boot that will end us in the recovery. From there, we hijack things and we reroute the boot process onto the microSD card, where that shared init script lives, which then boots the rest of GarlicOS. To make sure that we don't break the original recovery, because we kind of need to keep that one functional, otherwise you will never be able to factory reset your Android device if you ever want to sell it on.
You've a bricked situation.
Yes. We need to always make sure we don't break the original recovery doing this. So there is some fallback code. If no GarlicOS microSD card is found, it will still act like a regular unpatched recovery.
Well, can't you just pop out the SD card, though, after all this and just go back to your original OS?
Of course you can.
Well, I mean, so you're not bricking it. Well, you're talking about if you're messing with the bootloader inside the device's onboard storage.
Well, as I said, we need to find a way we can hijack the cold boot process.
Okay.
When you press the power button, we need to somehow end up on the microSD card.
Okay,
and
got it.
By having the boot combination on the RG405, where you do power button plus home/back, this is actually the official bootloader combination to kick us into the recovery, where we hijack the recovery to then boot the microSD card.
Everybody,
essentially adding microSD boot support.
Everybody, go in our description. There's the GitHub link in there. Take a look at it. You know, if this is speaking your language right now, this makes sense to you. Come help out. Come join us on this journey. Because look at this, dude. We got already a guy, Frank, in the chat here saying he's going to try with the 280M. That's his passionate device. It's a device not a lot of people use anymore, but if it had a new lease on life, we could turn old e-waste, like Matt's saying here, into loved devices. You wouldn't have landfills full of crap. You could use these devices. It would have a new life. That's nice. Isn't that what it's about at the end of the day, everybody?
Yeah. Talking about
just to clarify, that's our thing. Just to clarify to everybody in the chat, because I've seen a couple people make similar questions. This means the possibility of Garlic on pretty much any handheld, because they're asking about like, oh, what about this? What about this? It's pretty much any handheld. Once more work gets done, it's really going to be up to whoever wants to take it on to go ahead and port it. And we're going to be doing a live demonstration of how to port it next month, right?
Yes. It will be right after our 10-year anniversary. My wife and I have been married for 10 years now. So we will be out for a week, and after that, we can get all of that on the road.
What are you guys doing?
Oh, we're just doing a little round trip.
That's always, that's necessary. Well, everyone's going to want to know what handhelds are you going to bring on your trip. So you'll have to let us know.
That's a very good question. To be honest, I'm not entirely sure I'll bring any because, as I said, it's the 10-year anniversary and it's kind of about me focusing on my wife.
That's nice. That's man. What to do? That's too cute. You should focus on your
Horrible.
Well, in an effort to not make Ban's life harder for timestamps, because we're running a bit later on this one, but we've had a lot of fun. We want to go ahead and end the stream, but thank you all so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed this episode. Support Black Seraph, donate to the Ko-fi, join the Patreon. This man is hard at work, and now there's other developers being brought into the fray. But we love having this dude on, and we can't wait to have him on again. For the next season, we're going to have to talk about that and check in about 6 months or so and see where we're at. I can't wait for that one. If you are enjoying what we're doing here, thanks to our subs and patrons, you guys make the world go round for us. If you'd like to join, we have offerings on Patreon, on Discord, and we're about to launch the YouTube version. Just give me just a few more days on that one. But with that, this has been Stubbs on behalf of Black Seraph, Ban, and Aish. Take care of your handhelds, everybody. And take care of each other, too. All right.